And welcome back to Music Free Gaming. I hope you're having a fabulous day. And we're going to dive into a really fun rom-com today. As we're going towards Valentine's Day, let's talk about the movie What Women Want. Yes, we're going to dive into a really late movie review of a comedy that is all sorts of fun and exciting in, well, not only 2026, but also back in the ancient days when it actually came out. It stars Mel Gibson and Helen Hunt. Marissa Tomei is also in it and does a lovely job in her limited role. And this is one of those movies that, on the surface, could be very, very off-putting, okay? And I get that. So here's the deal. Mel Gibson plays Nick Marshall, who is the worst type of chauvinist man's man that you'll meet, okay? He also works as an advertising exec, which fits perfectly with his man's man thing, because at the company he's working for, he is basically the dude who is in charge of, figures out all of the TNA ads, right? If you want, what's one of the characters? If you want babes in bikinis, he's your man, right? And it's funny because the movie opens with a monologue by his ex-wife who is getting married. And she describes the man's man, right? The idea, here's the guy that every guy wants to be. Well, how does it put in Austin Powers? Women want him and men want to be him, right? That type of thing. But he is this sort of... sexist goes a little too far, okay? Egotistical doesn't, right? But he basically objectifies everybody who's not him, if you want to really get down to it. And that's a problem, okay? So here's the deal. He's an advertising exec. He loses out on the job of creative director for the company to a woman, Darcy McGuire, who's played by Helen Hunt. Okay. Obviously, this doesn't go over well with him. Now, the deal is the company is trying to get into the women-focused, women-targeted advertising market, right? Which they have not been doing at all, apparently. So this is a problem for him, okay? Now, let's deal with the other issue, is his ex-wife is getting married. He's thrilled, but his 15-year-old daughter is now going to be staying with him for a couple of weeks while the ex is on her honeymoon, okay? He is drowning in girl power, okay? Not great for our chauvinist idiot here, okay? Now, here's where things get fun. As part of a project, Darcy gives out this project to everybody at the beginning. And again, we're diving into full spoilers here, but this isn't much of a spoiler. This is this is the important part of the movie. The setup for what makes this movie fun, okay? Darcy gives everybody a box of stuff during her first meeting, and that box contains a bunch of things that are products for women who are seeking new advertising representation. It's like control top pantyhose, lipstick, a Visa card, and a bunch of other things, right? Okay, so Nick is in fact a professional here, and so he is trying to figure out how to sell these to women. So, hey, first thing he says, all right, I have got to, and this is how he puts it, okay? So you get the idea. I need to think like a broad, okay? Again, chauvinist. This is a problem, right? So he raids his daughter's CD collection, and puts on some, good, girl power, woman power songs, and he puts on the control top pantyhose, and he tries waxing his legs and all of this fun stuff, right? And of course, there's all the fun. Everybody will know right? He's putting on the wax on his legs, like, oh, this isn't so bad. Why is this? Why do women complain about this? And then he pulls it off, right? And yeah, that's a special bit of fun. But through the course of all of his craziness, okay, his daughter comes home with her boyfriend, sees him in the control top pantyhose with the Wonder Bra and all of this stuff. And as he's great, that was the great first impression. But he ends up slipping on bath beads or something and falls into the bathtub with the hairdryer. Not good for anybody's thing, okay? Don't do this. This is bad for you. But in our movie, it gives him a superpower. And that superpower is to hear the thoughts of the women around him. Okay. And he is freaking out. Because it turns out he is a chauvinist jerk. And the women around him hate his freaking guts for obvious reasons, right? But and that's the thing. He is seeing what everybody knows happens. People hide what they're thinking for good reasons, right? Right? Everybody's putting on a mask. And so he's now hearing the thoughts of the women around him. And, he's realizing the fake laughs at his sexist jokes were, in fact, fake. He's hearing the people, the women around him are like, what an a-hole. And what all of this stuff, right? And he is losing his mind. And he's hearing this while, right, he's lost his job, the job of his dreams to a woman. And Helen Hunt is a fabulous job, by the way, as Darcy. But, and he's dealing with a daughter who, I thought I was doing okay as a dad. Yeah, she doesn't even call him dad. She calls him Nick, right? He's going crazy until he meets with a therapist. It was a marriage counselor, played by Bette Midler, of all people, who drops him the line, if men are from Mars and women are from Venus and you speak Venusian, you could rule. And yes, he decides to use his new superpower for evil, right? Like you do. Right. Now, I don't mean he's going to go out and commit crimes with it. Okay, this is a romcom. That's not where this goes. But what does your typical egotistical person do? Try to dig a pit under their boss so they could take their job. Especially when it's one that he thought he should get, right? I've been in that situation. I know how tempting that is. Yeah, no. That's what he chooses, and it's a bad idea. But here's where things get fun with this, right? He's listening to Darcy's thoughts, basically stealing her ideas from her own head, right, to pass them off as his own, or right. Okay, not a good look for Nick. All right. Also, there's this hot barista at the coffee shop that he goes to, played by Marissa Tomei, and he's trying to get with her, and he can hear her thoughts and hears what her concerns, and he plays on those. Yes, right. He's using his power for evil. Now, here's where things get interesting, though. Yes, he's hearing all of this stuff, right? But he's also learning what is actually going on with women. And the women around him specifically, okay? And he's learning that, hey, women are, in fact, people, right? And he starts to understand what a horrible person he's been, right? Because of everyone around him, especially all the women around him, are telling him what a horrible person he is, right? And it's a lot of fun to see that transition. And it's fun to hear, you hear the thoughts of the women around him as he's doing things, right? So he'll talk to Darcy and she'll say something and you'll get her thoughts as she's thinking. Right? Because that's what thoughts happen, is when you're thinking, okay? Obviously not when podcasting, but at other times thoughts actually happen. And as he's obviously has to work closely with her so he can hear her thoughts so that he can steal them. But he gets to know her. He gets to see her skills and her talents and who she is. And she's a complicated woman, right? She is the creative director at I think at the movie, the number 3 advertising agency in Chicago, which is basically the United States at that point. This is a very prestigious position. She is outwardly very confident. Okay. But she's a person, and she has all the insecurities of, okay, it's my new job. I'm leading new people. I hope I can make this work. The monologue that goes through your head of, okay, I'm nervous. What if they don't like me? What if they, right? All of that stuff. And he's hearing that, and obviously that's what he's eventually wanting to plan a little bit. But what he learns is that she actually does speak her mind and what she thinks very often, which she says at one point has caused her a problem in her previous marriage, right? Her ex didn't like that part about her, that she spoke her mind. As they work together on this project for Nike, he realizes that, yeah, I have been wrong in how I've been treating people. But he's also getting that with a bunch of people around him. And we get to see some of that, like with his coworkers, right? He's been treating like he is God's gift to advertising, to women, and to pretty much everybody else he runs into. And as he starts to listen to them and listen to their needs, right? There's the one office assistant who, she's in a long distance relationship with a guy in Israel. She's been stuck running errands when she's got a degree from Yale for what that's worth, and she's sort of freaking out, right? Well, honestly, no, she's pretty normal. I think that's pretty much what we're learning here, is most of these people are normal, with all of the normal concerns that he had zero interest in, right? Less than zero. They were irrelevant to him and his desire to either get a job or get with a girl that he wanted, okay? And because he can hear their thoughts, he's beginning to realize that, no, wait, this isn't cool for me, right? But we see Lola, right? The barista he tries to get with, and does, because, he can hear that she would like to go out with him because he's a good-looking dude, but she's afraid of getting hurt again. And so he plays, I know what it's like to start a new relationship. You're afraid of getting hurt. And right, he hits all of those buttons, right? Again, he's using his powers for evil at the beginning of this, right? And yes, they go out and he says all the right things to get her into bed, right? And then, the scene is hilarious and again, there's no skin here, okay? It's an adult rom-com. There's no skin. Language gets a little rough at times. I don't think they ever drop an F-bomb, but, they're not too afraid to use other adult language, okay? But they're making out. He's distracted by her thoughts, and then he realizes that, hey, I can hear her thoughts. I know what she wants when she wants it, and I can do the thing. And yes, right. And as she's rolling back, it's like, oh yes, her exclamation in her head is, Nick Marshall is a sex god, right? Because he's using his powers for evil. But this was the girl he wanted to get with, but he's getting distracted by Darcy, who he's starting to fall for, because here is a strong, confident woman and he realizes, she actually has the depth that he didn't know he wanted. Okay. And poor Lola gets forgotten, right? Remember this person who doesn't want to get hurt again? And, right, she had this amazing date and then he doesn't call her for 6 days, right? Yeah, it turns out not great for Lola. So, yeah, right, he's seeing the consequences of his actions to the people around him, right? And it's amazing how that can help change a person, right? His daughter is an interesting case, right? She's 15. She's trying to navigate high school, which is always a hard time in anybody's life. She's just started dating. The guy she's dating is, dude, I would not be happy if my daughter was dating this dude, okay? He is significantly older, which in and of itself isn't that big a deal. He's like 3 years older than her. He's 18, she's 15, okay? But the dude's, pierced out, definitely looks, does not look like the fine, upstanding citizen, right, everyone claims they want for their kids, okay? But he is still trying to be supportive of his daughter. Okay, she likes him, I don't, but she likes him, okay? And as a father, I've been there, right? I did not like the guy one of my daughters was dating and eventually married and eventually divorced because he had issues. This is not the place to air that, but I totally get that. But she's also 15 and not happy about living with her dad that has been more or less, ignorance of her, right? Hasn't really paid attention, misstates her age when you first meet her. And obviously, and he went through her stuff to find a CD that was not Frank Sinatra so that he could try to get into women's psyches, right? And he's trying to help. Because he can hear her thoughts, he knows that she's got this plan to go all the way with her boyfriend after prom. Right? And so he's trying to be an actual supportive, guiding father. And it's interesting because they have a point, they're having lunch. He's trying to have that talk with her over lunch. And she's, of course, resisting it because she doesn't trust him, right? Rightly so, I think, as much as I hate to admit, a parent doesn't trust, or kids don't trust their parents. It makes all the sense in the world. But as he's hearing the thoughts of the women around him who overheard his conversation with her, some of them are like, yes, you tried, good, maybe it'll make a difference. Some of the other women's like, yeah, it's too late. Good luck. Yeah, that's, that's not going to work, dude. And it's realize sometimes there isn't a right choice, but he's trying, and he learns to be the supportive parent that his daughter needs. Right? These are problems when you're dealing with the toxic masculinity, right? Which really is at the heart of this movie, What Women Want. I was about to say the toxic masculinity is at the heart of what women want. No, right? There are things that women do want, and there are signs of positive masculinity. If you want to hear more about that, check out my really late movie review of The Intern from a few weeks ago. because he could hear what the people are thinking, he is starting to see people other than himself. And one of the, in some ways, more important one, all right, because the whole thing is the rom-com is him and Darcy falling for each other throughout this thing, okay, which is great. But one of the characters that you run into early is a young woman named Erin. And she's a file girl. She's carrying files around. She's there before meetings, laying out the portfolios as people are looking at stuff, right? This is her job. She's very much the administrative assistant, very low level administrative assistant. Okay. And she is suicidal. Yeah. Right. She's ignored by the people around her. As she comes by early, she's carrying a tray of fruit that's going to be placed out on the table at a meeting or something. And Nick hears her thoughts as she goes by, as she's thinking these dark thoughts and talking to his friend about it. I says, yeah, the girl with the fruit, I don't think she's okay. And the guy's like, what girl with the fruit? Because he totally ignored her. She was not at all part of his consciousness, right? And he sees her Nick sees Erin at times where she dropped a bunch of stuff and everyone's basically stepping around her, stepping over her. And Nick steps down to help her, right? And she brightens because, hey, somebody saw her. She was seen, right? But yeah, every time you see her, it's like, what if I just jumped out this window? Would anybody notice? Right? And again, she is not in a good place. And so when she doesn't show up for work one day and doesn't call, right? Just, he is rightfully scared for her and goes to help her. Now, it turns out she had a cold and she hadn't called in sick, but he learns to think beyond himself. And that is such an amazing trait that I think we need to cultivate, right? I was thinking about this a little bit as I rewatched this movie, and I was thinking about things, right? Again, this is a movie about toxic masculinity, if you want to think of it that way. But there is a positive masculinity, right? The desire to protect is not a bad thing, right? The desire to provide isn't a bad thing. It's what do you do with it? Well, the desire for connection isn't a bad thing either, right? And that's the problem is he wants connection for himself and not for anybody else, right? The women around him are just there as playthings in a lot of ways, right? And that's horrible. That is a horrible attitude, right? And they don't shy away from that here. That is not good. It's when he learns to stop objectifying the women around him and to sort of get over himself a bit, right? That he actually becomes a person that people can trust and people can love. And that is a fascinating lesson. Now, as I said, Helen Hunt is amazing as Darcy. She plays that character fabulously, and the monologue, all right, the inner thoughts are fun. Just the way they portray that, it's so much fun to watch. And one of the things I really like about the movie is the music, right? Not necessarily the musical score that's underneath it, but the soundtrack, the music they choose, right? It is more often than not Frank Sinatra or some flavor of jazz. And it is, those choices are amazing, right? And what's amazing about it in some ways is he goes to Frank Sinatra because he sees Sinatra as hardcore male empowerment, right? He's just the cure for all this feminine, as he puts it, feminine garbage that he has to put up with. It's Frank Sinatra, right? On the other hand, he walks in to Darcy's. I guess she's actually not in her office. She's at a conference table with stuff spread all over because Nick screwed her out of a later meeting time, and now she's cramming for a meeting she's got the next morning. But she's listening to Frank Sinatra. And for her, it's a totally different vibe, right? And I think there's probably some symbolism here that I am not able to express here at 6:30 in the morning as I'm recording this. But man, I love it. I like Sinatra anyway. I like jazz, but the music is great. And it just sets the tone. I think one of the things I like about it is this is a rom-com about adults. Okay. I've watched a lot of rom-coms because I like them. Okay. I don't watch them as much these days as I did when I was younger, but I don't watch movies as much as I did when I was younger. Yeah, go figure. But these aren't your star-crossed lovers who are, just barely out of school or something, right? Or, this isn't, you're a High School Musical type, kids romance, right? This isn't a lot of stuff. These are adults, right? Who are adults. And the music reflects that they are, in fact, adults. And it's not, it's not a lot of the music that you get that's, I don't know, the kids these days. I don't know where I'm going with this, but I think it sets the tone that, yeah, these are adults who are okay with being adults. And maybe that's the thing I'm trying to go at is so many movies I've seen or rom-coms, one of the characters or another is basically an adult child, right? They are whiny. Why can't I get my way? And all of that stuff, right? No, these are adults. Now, I'm not going to say Nick is a character, he's not whiny, but he definitely has the why can't I get my way? Because he's a chauvinist, egotistical jerk, okay? What at least he is when the movie starts. And yeah, when you hit the climax of the movie, when he's realized everything in his world is falling apart, okay? He realizes that, yeah, he screwed over Darcy, the woman that he has fallen in love with, and he was successful. He cost her job. Erin, right, the suicidal file girl, doesn't show up to work after she's been, throughout the movie thinking about, hey, maybe if I just don't show up to work, no one will notice until, the files just pile up, right? His daughter goes to prom and he gets a call from his ex-wife. Says, she called me 3 times. What's going on? What's happening with her? It's like, oh, no, right? All of this is crashing down around his ears. And it's at this point he loses his powers, right? He can no longer hear people's thoughts, and he now has to deal with these crises, not necessarily of his own making, but he has some responsibility. Like in the case of Alex's daughter, she's his daughter, right? He's her father. He needs to go and be her father. Okay. Not best friend dad, not uncle dad, as she calls him, I think, at one point. She needs to be her father with all of the positivity, right? All of the support and love and understanding that goes with being a father. Or should. Okay. I'm not going to claim I've been perfect at that in my whole life. I have not. But that was something I've learned more as I've gotten older. But he has to go do this. And so dealing with her, right? All of this comes, and he has learned how to deal with it and deal with the people around him as people. He learns to deal with them as peers. Maybe that's putting it too bluntly. I don't know. But they are full full equals. They are people with thoughts and feelings and all of this stuff, right? Because this has been his problem. He has been objectifying actually everybody around him, but women in particular, because that's who he is. And so as he learns to get over that, it is so much fun. It is so much, and it's great to see that yes, people can change, they can learn, and they can still be confident in who they are without objectifying the people around them. And that is, I think, a good thing. Okay. So yes, check it out, What Women Want. It was it's fun. Definitely more adults. Okay. Right. They do use adult language. They do not shy away from sex. And in fact, that's a running theme. Let's talk about that for a minute, because obviously chauvinist man's man, right? He's out to get a piece anytime he can. Okay. That's not a great attitude to have. Okay. But also his daughter is thinking, okay, she's trying to be an adult. And in her mind, one of the rites of passage of being an adult is sex. And so how is she dealing with that and navigating that? And when as Nick is hearing her thoughts about this, he's trying to guide her to make informed decisions about if and when to just have sex. Okay. Of course, she doesn't trust him, right? Because she barely knows the guy, right? In some ways, right? He's been mostly an absent father. Okay. But he does honestly care about her. And yeah, some of it is, at least at the beginning, it's well, my little girl wouldn't do. Oh, wait. So, yeah, it's really interesting, I think, watching him go through this progression, and I love it. So, let me know what you think. If you've seen it, different thoughts, whatever. Drop a comment here on YouTube or on Spotify. Let me know. I'd love to hear your take on it. And remember, like, subscribe, all that good stuff. And until next time, be excellent to each other. And this is Music Free Static, signing off.